Welcome to Playing Above the Line's very first mini-series. I'm Alan, your host, and this episode is one of 10 we're recording with T.R. Miller's legendary football coach, Jamie Riggs. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. This episode is sponsored by Drexel and Honeybees, a donation-only restaurant. Drexel and Honeybees is open Tuesday through Thursday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. All are welcome, and the only rule is that everybody eats. So if you're looking for a hot meal, you're welcome at 109 Lee Street in Bruton. If you'd like to donate to this generous cause, you can visit drexelandhoneybees.com, or you can click on the link in the show notes.
What happened here is I was out at PE class. I'm out at PE one day, and we're out there, and we're playing out there on the baseball field. They are in the process of finishing up our new practice field at the time. So this was 2011. Next year will be the first year that we'll be on that field. And that since they built the high school there in 1963, every T.R. Miller football team had practiced on that field. Every one of them in the outfield of baseball. So every one of them, everybody who has ever played football at T.R. Miller has practiced out there on that field. And I just kind of got to thinking about that and how nostalgic a little bit that was, that all these great players and great coaches and everything have always gone out there in the field. So we were about to play Handley in the second round of the state playoffs. And so I wrote this one on November 11th, 2011. We would end up losing to Handley 21-19 in a close game that night. But this one is called The Spirit of T.R. Miller Lives Here. We have a new practice field that we haven't been able to get on yet during this football season. It still needs some leveling and some other work, but we'll be on it sometime in the next year. My PE class was out playing touch football this past week on the baseball field, which has served as our football practice field for what seems like forever. And my mind started wandering. As we finished up our last season of football practice there, I started thinking about what this piece of land has seen over these many years. You know, the dictionary defines a field as a piece of land devoted to sports. I don't know that this field could be described any better. There's been much devotion on this piece of property for nearly 50 years. When the new T.R. Miller High School opened in 1963, the Miller football team began practicing on the baseball field. All the great teams have been there. The great champions, the great players, the legends of Miller football have all stood on this hallowed sod. Sometimes if you go by there when no one is around and just sit and listen to the silence, you can feel the history. You can feel the humidity of the August practice, the one-on-one collisions, and the beauty of Walter Lewis and Reggie Brown running the option play. Near the left field line, you can hear Frank Cotton chewing on a player in the late 60s as he spits tobacco juice everywhere. The lineman chutes always stood near the right field fence, close to the foul line. It was Donnie Roch's devoted area for nearly 2 decades. In the 70s, we would kick extra points toward an old goalpost in center field. And late in the season, the pecans would fall as the ball rocketed through that old tree. The parents and the kids and the fans all stood under those pecan trees and watched practice. I remember watching such a practice in the mid-'60s, wondering if I would measure up as I watched the great Bucky Philippi quarterback a preseason scrimmage. This soil must be sweetened with the sweat and blood and Gatorade of those teenage years, where young men prepared for those Friday night games as though it was the most important thing in their world. You can almost see the players all on a knee listening to their coach. He is talking about pride in being a Miller Tiger and how tough the opponent is and the Herculean effort it will take to win on that upcoming Friday night. Then suddenly it happened. Dow Altman splattered another runner, and the sound echoed off the brick of the football stadium amid the roar of his teammates. Then magically, it was an overcast Monday in 1997, and we are working on a screen pass. You can see from the desperate look on their faces that it is kneel week and the opponent is fierce. I want to tell them to work hard on the pass. It will be one of the great plays of the great upset. But I refuse to spoil the moment that is still 4 days away. There are 2 lines of players in all white uniforms facing each other in right field. I can tell from the helmets it's a long time ago. In the flash of a moment, I recognized a face in one of the helmets. I'm 14 years old, and it's my first tackling drill. And like most Miller Tigers in their first tackling drill, I'm pretty nervous. All at once, a vision appears in left field. I'm now a senior, and I'm running with the ball with the courage and the confidence that 4 years of playing football for T.R. Miller can bring you. Is it possible? Like in Kevin Costner's movie Field of Dreams, could they all be there at one time? Is it possible to see them, to hear them, or to feel their presence? For this piece of earth was truly a field of dreams, where we learned that great things were possible if you worked and tried and cared about each other. If you step on this field, will you suddenly be 17 years old again with shoulder pads and helmet in hand? Some nights you can drive by the field and the lights will be on, but we can never find out who flipped the switch. Is there a scrimmage in progress? Is that Pat Byrne, class of 2002, I just saw throw a pass to Shine McCracken, class of 1970? Could that be Mike Sasser and the 64 team battling the 1994 state champions? All of a sudden, there's a flash going down the sideline. Wearing number 40. Ron Gibson just broke a sweep down the sideline, and nobody's going to catch him. Far out in center field, I can see this man with a red helmet on. He's kneeling like the nose guards of a past generation in front of the ball, just waiting on the next play. From the U-bar in front and the 72 on the side, I know it must be Frankie Sims. He is waiting patiently for one more play that has been promised to him for many years. I will miss this old field. I know it was built for baseball, but it has survived the wear and tear of 49 football seasons. We walked onto this field as children, but left as young men ready to take our place in the world. I want to put a sign on the fence, and I really want it to say this: the spirit of T.R. Miller lives here. If you don't believe me, go by late at night when the lights are on and just listen.
That's a great tribute to, what's a piece of dirt, right? It's just a field, but everything you talked about is so true. Two people that you mentioned in that essay, Donnie Roch and Frank Cotton, really are the spirit of Miller.
Absolutely. Well, I think that part of that has to do with the fact that Frank came here in 1966 and Donnie was principal all the way to 2010. It's a lot of years that one of them was there. And these kind of things were important to them. And it seemed like they knew everyone. They knew all these guys and all these players and stuff. And people would come back for homecoming and they'd see them. And they kind of helped extend that a little bit. And so I think that was important. But there is a spirit about that. That field was, we'd all been out there. Yeah. It was one point in time we'd all been out there. And so that field's still there today. We just play baseball on it. Yeah. And we did all kind of work on it, trying to keep it in good condition, because a football team practicing on a field will do some damage to it.
Well, let me ask you this, because anybody that remembers Coach Roch knows that he was all about looking your best, keeping his field up. Now, so not only was he the linebackers coach, is that right?
He was the offensive line coach. Yeah.
Offensive line coach. He was also the head baseball coach for a number of years. So I've got to imagine there was some sort of internal battle going on within himself, because he was a football coach, but you were messing up his baseball field. So.
I don't think you could put that any better. I can remember a lot of times we would go out there and we would be like running scrimmages. So usually we did most of our work from left field to center field. Okay, and we did some drill work down in right field. But if we were going to work our offense or against the defense, we would kind of do that. And I still can remember Donnie. We would be there every once in a while, and we'd be over here working everything. And he'd budge up next to me and say, "Why don't you move that ball down a little bit? We're getting we're digging up the grass a little bit too much here." So, and so we would, we would do it. So we tried to move around and do that. And, you had a rule you didn't walk on the infield anywhere, and so the football players, sometimes they get water and they got to go walk all the way around the infield to get across. But it was just part of the tradition of the thing. So we tried to take care of that field and make it last. And we must have done a pretty good job. It lasted 50 years.
Did a good job. It's just a field, but it does personify the spirit of Miller. Thank you for that. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. And as always, a big thank you to producer and editor Carrie Wolf. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avisogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.